Hello, I am with Alex Christoforou. Hold on, let me try that again. I had it.
You got it.
Christoforou, right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Pregnant brain. I am with Alex Christoforou. Welcome to our locals hangout. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. And I've watched some of your work on YouTube, and I would really love for you to just tell people what you're doing, what you're about, and who you are a little bit before we get into your locals community.
Yeah, we're a media channel and we focus on geopolitics. So we try to cover just about any newsworthy story or topic that's taking place. We'd like to think all over the world, but it's a big world. So we try to cover as much as possible. And we cover it with what we like to call a realpolitik angle. In other words, we try to look at things from a very reality-based perspective. We try to take a lot of emotions out of the equation and just try to analyze things as they are without trying to bend things one way or another. And sometimes we talk about, we take positions that many viewers may disagree with, or many times they agree with, because politics is very, very divided today. But when we analyze events, we try to analyze them with the lens of reality and power politics and geopolitics and spheres of influence. And that's our channel. And we try to deliver an analysis that's based on objective truth.
And you're the second half, you're one half of the Duran,
Yes,
correct?
it's
Okay.
yes, it's me and Alexander Mercouris, and we
And
formed the Duran.
and is your background in like poli sci, or what is your background in?
Yeah, we're both we both have a background in political science, economics, finance, business. We're both. I'm based in Athens, Greece. Alexander is based in the UK in London, but we've both traveled quite extensively around the world, and we just have an interest in what's going on around the world, because I think we both have a philosophy and a belief that everything that's happening, even in different parts of the planet, they're interconnected, and
Mm-hmm.
the one news story that may be happening far away from where you are does affect what's happening to you in your local community. And when you understand these things, you can start to get a better picture how to handle your daily life and your daily business.
It's really fascinating to me how American centric our culture, war, and politics often are. And as somebody who has a more global perspective, because I feel things are very much divided in the United States, but do you find that that's true globally right now? Is there a lot of polarization, or is
Yeah.
it's not just a phenomenon that's, I mean, I know in the UK it seems like there's a lot of division, but what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think in the UK, they definitely follow the trends in the US a little bit more. So I do believe that there is more of a division that doesn't only hit the political angle. There is a lot of social division as well in the UK, though I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's as exposed or as
Mm-hmm.
in your face as it is in the US. But around the world, I would say that there's always divisions from a political side of things, but since the pandemic, the past 2 years, that has definitely carried over to a divide on a social level. In the U.S., obviously, there's a lot of division on a social level with regards to various aspects of the culture, but in Europe, I think that divide that pits brother against brother and family members against each other really was spurred on by the pandemic and the vaccines and all that stuff. It
Yeah.
really did aggravate it.
That's interesting to me because I have friends in Rome, for instance, and I just talked to somebody in Australia because in the media, it's always hard to tell what's being censored, what stories are not being told. What am I seeing on social media that might look like a very large deal, but it's really a small fraction of the population? And my friend in Rome I was like, I'm seeing all these protests in Italy and it seems crazy. And she's like, oh, that's not that many people, and
Yeah.
so it's hard because it's hard. It's the same thing I experienced in Portland, where you see these videos of, Portland burning, and people who live in Portland are like, oh, it's 6 blocks. I mean, I think it's expanded now, but a couple of years ago, people who were living through this were like, oh, it's just like 6 blocks. I wouldn't even know about it if you hadn't said something. So I think that this is a very interesting time to be covering stuff like this geopolitically. And also then you're dealing with just the big tech kind gatekeeping. We went from a time where there was this promise that the internet was going to rip down the gatekeepers, and now you don't have to go through the network, and you don't have these big corporations who are in charge of who gets to say what. And for a little brief moment that was true, but now it feels like the gatekeepers have just become the algorithms. What's been your experience with that as somebody doing what you do?
Well, we felt it personal. We felt it personally. We felt it, yeah, and personally, as a business and personally. We about six months ago, give or take, PayPal for no reason cut us off.
Oh,
For no
wow.
reason. We
And
still to this day don't really know why. I mean,
wow.
you just kind of get an email, one of these standard emails, which says, PayPal doesn't want to do business with you. And it wasn't only our channel as a business. They also sent the same letter to my own personal PayPal and Alexander's
Wow.
own personal PayPal. So I mean, we felt it, and we don't really have an explanation why, or if there's any recourse that we could take from it. But aside from that, we've seen the usual shadow banning and stuff like that. I mean, we get because we cover a lot of Europe and Russia. We get a lot of censorship on that end as well, because we present a position which I would imagine many Westerners and many Americans would say, you're sympathetic to Russia or to Putin. And, we always tell them, look, it's not about being sympathetic one way or another. I mean, you may like a certain politician or not. That's a different topic altogether. We're just trying to analyze the realities of the situation, and which countries, once again, have more leverage over others. What are the historical facts? And, it's not about whether you like something or not, but, you're right. The algorithms and the people that create the algorithms, and that's something that, I think we've been misled. An algorithm is a person behind it. And a person has their biases, has their emotions. And when they create these algorithms, they're baking these things in there. So
yeah, there's a really funny meme going around. Have you seen this meme where it was and it reminds me of what you're saying, where because Google's so insidious, or can be, and it is it says why censorship, and it's on Google. And they're like trying to, it says why censorship, and then it says is important, is necessary, is important for us, is good in schools, and then it was like, Benjamin, get the musket. And it's such a funny but telling meme. I mean, the memes right now they're prophetic. I think that they're in the comedy space. I find them to be the most brilliantly revealing aspects of our culture. They will save the world, and undoubtedly. But these chilling effects, I'm really interested in the more international perspective that you have, because, and why that, led you to somewhere like Locals, and how you feel about Locals, because what I'm interested in your opinion is what gives you hope, and what are you most pessimistic about seeing this kind of chilling censorship that comes, because the algorithms are made by people, but with the advent of AI, they do kind of take on a mind of their own.
Yeah. I think you're right in pointing out the AI, that they take a mind of their own and they take out the humanity from it, and I think that's one of the aspects that Locals injects back into the internet, which is the humanity.
Wow, that's a really great point.
Yeah, and it's hard, here we are talking on a screen, people don't realize that what we do is we're literally talking to like an empty box. There's no one in front of us or anything. It's kind of strange, but in YouTube, there's probably a lot more disconnect where in locals, when you are doing videos or you're doing live streams, because you have such a tight-knit community that is also going to add their own content and their own opinions. And one person's going to comment on another person's news feed or post, and then you're going to jump in there as well as the person that runs the community. But you're also going to be conversing with people. It feels like it does feel more like there's a human touch to it all, and that you are becoming friends with the people. Definitely. Where YouTube's a little more distant. It feels a little more distant.
I mean, I've had a wake. We're not a wake. It was a memorial. It was a Zoom memorial for somebody who died in our community. And we never met this person in real life, but because they were so engaged in the community, they were just a fixture in our community. And we ended up doing a Zoom memorial, and it was really moving, and people brought things, and that would never happen on YouTube. That's not something that you can even cultivate on YouTube. Impossible. And I'm sitting here and I have presents behind me from, they wanted to throw me a virtual baby shower, but my community has bought like all these presents from my registry, and the generosity has been so crazy, and they're so excited to kind of be able to be a part of it. And I post pictures of my bump in there that I wouldn't post public. I'm just more personal with them that I wouldn't be publicly. And so I really liked what you said about it, injecting humanity back in. And as I've talked about with many creators, my perspective is that the incentives are correct, and that they're incentivizing this kind of relationship and fostering thoughtful conversation and compassion and kindness, as opposed to dunking and radicalizing and extremism and the short easy way to get somebody mad.
Yeah, the internet wasn't supposed to be like this. This isn't what we were promised, or what we thought the promise of the internet was going to be. The fact that on social media, on Instagram, you can see all these fabulous photos, and it makes you feel crummy about your own life, or that people are bullying one another, or that there's trolls that are going to report you to YouTube and you're going to get deplatformed, or that you feel like the surveillance state is watching over you, or in Canada now you're going to donate $20 to a cause and you're going to get your bank account seized. This is not what the internet was supposed to be. Locals, to me, it's the technology of today, but it's the promise of the internet of the 1990s.
I've heard this before, and I think it's so true.
Yeah, it's I'm going to connect with people that I may have never met. Maybe they live in the same city with me. Maybe they live in a completely different country, but at least I'm going to connect in some sort of way with them, and we're going to share certain opinions and thoughts. And even if we disagree, we're going to learn something from one another. And that's going to be that. There's not going to be any hard feelings. There's not going to be any censorship. It's just going to be a place where we can learn about each other and learn about the world. Maybe learn some history, maybe learn some current events, whatever it may be.
How do you use your locals what's the difference between the content you would put out? For instance, it's, public facing versus what you're putting behind the paywall, and what are you using your audience in locals? Are you kind of getting ideas for stories? I know a lot of people get ideas for stories, for topics, for their audience informs their content. It becomes this kind of symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I get a lot of material from the posts that people are putting up there on locals. To be honest, I think that locals now has become my morning start page in a way.
Yeah.
Some people think I'm helping the community, or we're helping the community when we put out our news reports, but they're actually helping us as well, because we're getting a lot of information from them. And when you have a lot of people contributing,
they're like your little research team.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get that information and we repackage it or put our own spin on it, and then we give it back to them. So it's a very give and take type of feel to it. And and we're trying. I mean, it's still evolving how we're going to leverage locals, or how we are leveraging locals. And we try to always get our videos up on locals first before they go anywhere else. We're doing now weekly live streams. So Alexander does a live stream every Wednesday on the dot. His first live stream had something like 20, 30 people. Now he's getting like 400 people who are, logging on. And he doesn't even have time to give his own analysis. He has to jump straight to questions because there's so many that just start flooding in that he's like, okay, today Russia did this and the United States did that. And anyway, let me get to the questions. And you're like, okay, well, there's no analysis because there's just not enough time.
Yeah.
That's how engaged people are.
Yeah. Yeah. It is remarkable. We really let people into our lives on our live streams. So my husband and I have started doing little mini, just thanking people for all the presents, and we'll gather 10 presents that we got and sit down and chat with everybody, and the daily news will come up and stuff like that. But another thing I love about locals is that the way I use it often is to try and bring back that humanity, the communal feeling. We talk a lot about food and pets and, the things that are kind of deeply human and really meaningful. Our families, people share really, really vulnerable posts about what's going on in their life, posts that they certainly wouldn't feel comfortable sharing other places. They share opinions they feel like they can't share. So it does, for as much as this term has been destroyed, we laugh a lot. It always comes up. I'm like, it is kind of a safe space online for people. Yeah. And I think it's important because it is, we live online now, so many of us, and we're publicly on Twitter and these bigger platforms where there's a lot of negativity and noise. And this is like locals is like my digital home. And like you, I wake up and I just love seeing people. There's like a dawn patrol in my community where they're all up in the morning and they have a little coffee chat with each other. And I love seeing all the creativity. Do you think that the locals and the Rumble merger, do you think that this is a promising development in the face of a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, censorship and shadow banning?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's promising. There's no doubt that Rumble has definitely broken out of the pack of, say, video platforms. There's no doubt that Rumble has separated itself to become the leading video platform. And I think Locals is just almost carved out its own category. I mean, I don't think it can be compared to anything. Some people say it's Patreon or Subscribestar. I don't think it's anything even close to that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that way to me.
It doesn't feel that way. It's got its own, it's its own thing in a way. It's its own deal. I think the merger,
way sexier, by the way.
I mean, I mean, Patreon as well is cold. It just doesn't have this warm feeling to it. It's just, support me and that's that. I mean, there's nothing, there's no warmth to it. I think the merger is fantastic. I mean, I really want Rumble and Locals to grow. I want it to surpass YouTube. But at the end of the day, how they're going to treat censorship is going to depend on the management and on the people. Businesses are people, and if the people that are running the business consider these things to be a core value, and they protect those core values, then we're fine. YouTube, Google's mantra was "do no evil."
It's always scary though.
and it did change, and they took it out a few years ago. But there was a time, people forget, there was a time when Google was a loved brand. I mean, it really was a loved brand. People felt safe with Google. They thought Google respected their privacy. They felt that Google protected them. There was a lot of goodwill towards Google. It's incredible how they've completely squandered that. It really is. It's astonishing. If it was my business, I would be shocked at what the management has done to my brand.
Yeah, I don't even know how you manage something that big. It seems like Facebook too. I was recently watching it was all about the dark web, and it was talking about the people who have to censor like the really horrific content on Facebook and how traumatic it is for them. But I was like, there's billions of people on that platform. How on earth could you possibly, it's too big. How could you possibly, no matter what, all these companies, if they reach a certain threshold, they're going to have to wrestle with how do you navigate these really complex problems of things like the worst, darkest aspects of humanity, whether it's terrorism or, child pornography and things like that. So I try to have some sense of scope in terms of what happened, because I want to think it wasn't malicious. It maybe just got away from them, but then they started, the ideology and the capture there that is so evident makes me believe that something more sinister is going on sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely sinister, and and to be honest, I think that they did have a handle on it. I don't find it to be so difficult, in my opinion, to understand what content they need to police and what they don't.
Right.
I mean, child pornography and terrorism. I think people know it. These moderators will know it when they see it, and they'll be able to monitor it. I mean, I firmly believe that the pivot point, the most important thing that happened to destroy the internet that we have today with all this censorship and shadow banning and stuff like that, was when the United States of America deplatformed a sitting president of the United States, when big tech deplatformed it. And it has nothing to do with the man. It has to do with the principle. And Europeans and leaders around the world were shocked. The president of Mexico was shocked. Angela Merkel, Germany, Macron, everyone was shocked, because you just can't exercise that type of power over a world leader. And people need to hear what a world leader is saying, no matter how bad or good or medium that world leader is. It's important stuff. And you just can't come out and censor somebody that important. And to me, that changed everything. It really changed everything. And I think the whole world kind of sat back and said, the United States right now, at this very moment, they have zero right to tell my country how to live, or what human rights are, or what free speech is. I mean, at that moment, the U.S. kind of lost all its credibility. And I think the damage that was done there is something that is never going to be forgotten. And the Jack Dorseys and the Zuckerbergs, I don't think history is going to look too kindly on them for doing that, because they hit at the core credibility of the U.S. And it was very damaging.
I think Canada's going through this right now. They're going through their moment where everyone's looking at Canada and going, what exactly what is going on here?
Yeah, this Trudeau guy's not so nice. Yeah.
I feel like they're having their moment where people are like, maybe it's not so free over there. Yes.
Exactly right. Maybe it's not so free. Maybe it's not as free as I thought. Maybe all of this is a good thing. Maybe all of this is something that we have to go through.
Right. It's what I love about Locals and Rumble is that it gives me the freedom of still being able to express what I think. And you don't realize how insidious self-censorship is until it starts creeping, because if your livelihood is creating content, making news, and now you're worried that your channel is going to get shut down or you'll be demonetized, you start walking on eggshells. I mean, we joke all the time on my dumb show Dumpster Fire that we're like in an abusive relationship basically with YouTube. We're like, it's like living with an alcoholic. You're like, when is this person going to come home and be like, get out of the house?
It's like you have the sword of Damocles just dangling over your head, and you don't know if I say COVID 3 times in a video, is that it? Is it coming down on me? I don't know.
I know. And I don't. And so I can live with that, knowing that I'll still exist on Rumble, knowing that I'll have a community. I can still post my videos in locals. It is incredible. I did not realize how empowering it was to have these spaces available to me, and why I do feel so excited about locals and Rumble and even that kind of marriage, because they do need to be powerful to take on these other forces that are immensely entrenched in everything.
Yeah, but
I mean,
they're
Amazon's
falling
a real
apart.
scary one.
Yeah, Amazon's scary, but they're falling apart, and I think in 5 years' time, I wouldn't be surprised if people are saying, remember that social media company called Twitter where you would send 140 or 240 characters? Whatever happened to those guys? I think we're seeing it, and I really believe that YouTube is now at a point where they're not going to make it. I firmly believe that Twitter is not going to make it, and Facebook may actually be the first social media company to go down the toilet. I mean, they're having a really, really hard time. If they did not own Instagram or WhatsApp, I believe Facebook would be just at the point of closure.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really interesting.
yeah, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it, and maybe as we live day to day, we don't realize that. But 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to look back on it and say, how did they blow it? These big companies, how did they go from being so big to being nothing?
I hope so. This is an optimistic note to end this interview on. Where can we find you and your content and your locals and your perspective, which I think is important?
Yeah, theduran.locals.com.
Okay.
That's where
And
you'll
on
find us.
social media?
On social media, we voluntarily left Twitter. We
Okay.
voluntarily left Facebook. So all you really do have is from big tech is just YouTube
Okay.
and Rumble.
Great.
We're on all the other alternative minds and
Okay.
Gab and Getter and
You
know.
didn't
Yeah.
like fake getting kicked off Twitter and then go on like a
Yeah.
victim
No,
tour?
we left it voluntarily. To be honest, yeah.
You really missed out
really
on the victim tour. You could have taken on
Twitter
that.
was so toxic. We were like, I just couldn't stand it.
Yeah, I understand. Well, thank you so much for your time,
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate you and all your work.
Thank you very much for this interview. Thank you. Really appreciate it.